بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here at the 6th Annual Rebuild Afghanistan Summit. I am very happy on behalf of your hosts, Dominican University, and the 2009 Rebuild Afghanistan Summit Committee to welcome you this morning. My name is Carol Ruth Silver, and I will be your MC. I have no other function than to try to keep this program moving along and to tell you the things that the committee has given me a script for. Since 2004, the Rebuild Afghanistan Summit Committee has been bringing people together in a common effort to help the people in Afghanistan. The goal has always been of this summit to mobilize the Bay Area community and connect organizations serving the people in Afghanistan with people like you who can help them expand their projects. We need your support to structure this event, this summit event, so it is more effective in supporting the organizations working in Afghanistan. If you can help us as you go through this day, think about helping us organize it for next year. The committee has a registration table in the rear. And if nothing else, put your name on the website when you look at it again. We have a very exciting program scheduled. If you can turn to the page in your booklet that shows the schedule, we will start the program with Professor Arthur Scott of Dominican University. Professor Scott is here, and Masood Sattari is here, who is the chair of the Rebuild Afghanistan Summit Committee. After these welcomes, we will have Dr. Naharit Aziz. Is Dr. Aziz here? There you are, so sorry. And Norman Solomon. Is Dr. Solomon here? Director of the Institute for Public Accuracy and a well-known Marin County author. They will speak about the role the Bay Area community can play in the future of Afghanistan. Now come the notices and the little things that you really need to know. We will break for an hour for lunch and networking. And those of you who are interested in doing so, you're welcome to look at the tables of the organizations that are spread around in this room. If you are speaking at the same time as the speakers, please be respectful and keep your voices down. The cafeteria downstairs will be closing at 12:30, so if you've not purchased a box lunch, please go down there quickly at before 12:30. Before you leave, please fill out the surveys inside your booklets and put them in the box at the rear. There is a tea and coffee and Afghan treats table in the back. I think everybody has already found that. Please be sure to turn off your cell phones. Now this is the biggie, right? And the committee has decided that by being here, you have consented to the following. If anyone's cell phone goes off while someone is speaking, you will be required to pledge a $100 donation to one of the organizations around the country. Thank you so much for your attention. I'd like to introduce now Arthur Scott, Assistant Professor, Dr. Arthur Scott, Assistant Professor of History and Social Cultural Studies here at Dominican University, for a few words.
Thank you for coming. My name is Arthur Scott. I'm in the Humanities Department, and what I thought I would do, I would begin with Salam Alaikum. My field of history is actually on Islam, so I'm always very much connected with what this summit is attempting to do. And it's really our pleasure to welcome the summit for the second time we've hosted this event. And we know that the summit, of course, is committed to doing some really wonderful things in the process of rebuilding Afghanistan. And many of the things that are being done, of course, are very, very powerful and very moving. So I welcome you. We have a very beautiful campus. If you have a chance, you might want to kind of walk through the campus a little bit. It's a beautiful fall day. Watch out for the deer. We don't have any turkey yet that I'm aware of, but the animals are very friendly, like everybody here at Dominican, very friendly. So enjoy your day and welcome.
And next, Masood Sattari. Masood is the one who created this organization, created this event out of whole cloth 6 years ago, and he is now our leader, our founder, our emeritus, trying to get out of doing a lot of the work by recruiting you all as volunteers. We give you Masood Sattari.
Thank you very much, Carol. A lot of that stuff wasn't in the script. So thank you all for coming here today. It's a pleasure having everybody here, and wanted to just ask quickly, how many of you, is this your first summit? Raise your hands up high. Okay, great. I'm glad. And we saw the same number of hands last year, so we're getting recycling through new people all the time. So it's great to have everybody here, and it's great to have new participants and new attendees. Like Carol said, we started the summit in 2004, and back in 2004, we didn't even call it the Rebuild Afghanistan Summit. We used to call it the Afghanistan Reconstruction Networking Session, and we thought that name was too long, so we came up with a different title for it, but the purpose is still the same. It's to bring people together who want to improve the lives of the people in Afghanistan, to share their ideas, and like you see all around you today, there's many organizations here. They're doing some wonderful work. We thought we'd switch things up a little bit this year. Normally what we have is all the organizations would come up. They would do a 5-minute presentation about the work that they've done in Afghanistan and share their projects with everybody. But we have so many wonderful organizations that it just, you're late in the afternoon by the time you get a chance to sit down and start really networking with folks. So the most important thing that you're going to take away with you today is this booklet. Did anybody get it? Did everybody get theirs? So inside of this booklet is basically your starting point. This is where those of you that don't have an organization that you're committed to working with, can look through the booklet, read about the organization. Their representatives are here. You can get involved starting right now with discussing anything that you need to, any questions or concerns that you may have for them. Also for the organizations that are looking for partners, you can also read about the organizations that are here, and you guys are probably sharing, doing similar projects, and maybe you can collaborate with those. So usually we start planning for the summit kind of late in the year, and I'm hoping this, for 2010 we can encourage more individuals from the Bay Area community to get involved with us. All of us here in this room can't make a significant impact by ourselves, but as long as we continue to work and continue to grow and continue to do more and more projects in Afghanistan, we can definitely make a big impact. And the Bay Area community is known for their generosity, their innovative spirit, and also the hardworking and diverse community that we have here. So the combination of the three can make a big impact in Afghanistan as long as we continue to work together and expand our projects. So I'm not gonna talk too long. Last year I got a lot of complaints because I went through the thank yous for too long. So this year I'm going to keep it real short. We have a huge committee of volunteers that help put the event together every year. If you turn to your booklet on page 2, I've listed them all there, and I'm sure I've missed a few. I know I've missed Marcia's husband on here because he helped make our signs, all of those wonderful signs that you guys saw on the way over here. He had helped make those, and lots of many other volunteers. I want to also thank Mr. Habib Zergai from Lemar TV. He's going to be covering all of our workshops and all the events. He's brought 3 brand new cameras for the event, so we want to also thank him whenever you guys get a chance. So I'd like to ask just 4 of the committee members to come up. Carol Ruth Silver, Mr. Norman Solomon, I'm not sure if he's here or not. Yeah, you want to come up, please? And Dr. Aziz, and also Mr. Arthur Scott, if you guys can come up here really quick. We just have a very small token of our appreciation for your support and for the summit, and wanted to just give you a small token of our appreciation from the summit committee. I'll give it to you here. Hold on to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Well, thank you again very much for having the event and coming over to speak, and thank you for the great talk. Glad to put all this around possible, and this is a small token from the committee. So hopefully we'll have you again next year.
Oh, well, thanks for all you've been doing all these years.
I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you guys make connections, and this event is all about action. Get involved, get your neighbors to get involved, like our friend here did. He brought all of his cousins. Get all your cousins involved, and get them to start working, because the only way we're going to make an impact in Afghanistan is if we continue working hard and continue to do our work. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Masood, and thank you so much for the quite unexpected thank you gifts. It is wonderful. I need things to put on my wall. Now we are going to take the opportunity to introduce each of the organizations that has signed up and has a table around the room. And pursuant to the decisions, the hard-fought, very difficult set of decisions made by the Rebuilding Afghanistan Summit organization, I am going to read from the booklet that you got at the front door, and you can follow along if you like. I'm going to read the main purpose, the mission statement of each of these organizations quickly, and I'm going to ask each of the persons who are representing those organizations to stand up at their table so that you will know where they are at any time that you want to go and meet with them. So here we go. I am allotted 15 minutes to go through 15 organizations. Let's see if we can do it. The first one is Afghan Business Network. Kasim Tareem, are you here? Please stand. All right. The Afghan Business Network is a group of entrepreneurs entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, and service providers collaborating together to grow businesses from the ground up in Afghanistan through successful coaching, funding, and sharing of strategies. Thank you very much. All right, next, Afghan Education for a Better Tomorrow. Where are you located? And Gulam Feda, would you stand up? There. Right in front of you. Please stand up and stay standing. And this is an organization based in California and registered in Alaska as a not-for-profit entity dedicated to serving the people of Afghanistan. Afghan Education for a Better Tomorrow is also registered in Afghanistan as an NGO. Thank you very much. And those of you who have worked in Afghanistan know how difficult it is to get your organization registered as an NGO, and what perhaps would be, those of you who are just beginning to think about doing something in Afghanistan, perhaps you would be well advised to talk to somebody who already is registered in Afghanistan so that you can avoid having to reinvent some of the things that you might otherwise have to. Afghan Friends Network, Susan Amak and John Bortner, my very good friends. Afghan Friends Network is a nonprofit organization establishing friendships, networks, and partnerships between individuals, organizations, and cities in the United States and Afghanistan. Thank you. We are on to Afghans for Afghans. Where are Afghans for Afghans? Raise your hand if you're not here. I'm going to go ahead and... Ann Rubin, are you here?
Not here.
Not here, okay. Afghans for Afghans is a humanitarian and educational people-to-people project that knits and crochets wool blankets, sweaters, vests, socks, mittens, and hats for the people of Afghanistan. And they do really wonderful work. It is not a trivial thing to a family in Afghanistan to have a warm blanket. Afghans for Tomorrow. We have 3 representatives. I'm going to ask them to just call out their names. All right. And they also do wonderful things. Afghans for Tomorrow is a nonprofit, non-political, humanitarian organization dedicated to the reconstruction and development of Afghanistan. A4T has volunteer members across the United States and a great guest house in Kabul. A little help. Those of you who are aware of this organization, I'm going to ask Morning de Perez to stand on behalf of it. Is that who is here?
No.
Okay. What is your name?
Jane Sinense.
Jane Sinense. As some of you know, as most of you know, Rosemary Spivak, Spacek, who was the founder of A Little Help and a really wonderful person from the Bay Area, was supposed to be the speaker today and passed away in Afghanistan just a month ago or so. And I'd like at this moment to ask that we take a moment of silence in her honor. All right. Thank you very much. Her organization goes on with the help of friends of hers and your friendship. A Little Help works to improve the lives of women and girls, especially those who are marginalized in Afghan society, whether it be due to location in remote areas or situation in the cities. So thank you for being here. Next organization is Association for the Protection of Afghan Archaeology. Nadia Tarzi. In the back in black and white. To The purpose of the organization is to raise awareness on Afghans' unique heritage, develop and share scientific and educational materials, participate in and organize conferences, provide teaching and professional training to future Afghan archaeologists and conservators. There is also a petition which is being circulated by the lovely daughter of Nadia, and Nadia is holding it up in the back, and those of you who are interested, please take a look at that and try to give us your help. Next, Berkeley Bamyan Educational Foundation. Who is here for that? Okay. Farima Joya. Are you Farima? Great. Their mission is to provide and support education, vocational training, supplies, and equipment to encourage self-sufficiency. And I take it that you're associated with the University of Bamyan, the Bamyan, what's the name of the university there?
Bamyan University.
Just Bamyan University, yes. Great, we're so glad that you're here. The Children of War, Tamer Ali. Tamer, where are you? The mission is education and empowerment for Afghans orphans, both boys and girls. They focus on providing orphan children primary education, a nutritious diet, and valuable job skills through the schools that they operate in the city of Kabul, the districts of Pagman and Wardak within Afghanistan. Very, very good. Hayward Ghazni Sister City Committee, represented today, I think not by Bill Quirk, but by Reverend Green, who is here. Stand up. The purpose of this organization is to improve communication and relations between the people of Afghanistan and the United States, to inform the public about conditions and opportunities to help in Afghanistan, and to carry out projects such as the Widows Literacy School in Ghazni, Afghanistan. Okay. Helping Hand for Relief. Is there a representative here? Inyat Razak? There you are. Stay standing. The purpose of this organization is to work with poor and excluded people to eradicate poverty and injustice, to strengthen the bonds of humanity by serving and in any in need all over the world. Thank you very much. All right. International Orphan Care. Over here. This is not Mike Whipple. Would you tell us your name?
I'm Anusha. I'm the Regional Director for Northern California.
Great. Anusha is here. Her mission, the mission of the organization is International Organ Care is providing the orphans of Afghanistan with hope. And that is an acronym for Help the Orphans Be Productive and Educated. Thank you very much. And not the last, but almost, I'm going to leave that one for last because it's my organization. OMID International. Mariam Razik. There you are. This is an organization whose mission is to restore hope to the lives of Afghanistan's children of war by removing them from a state of anguish, isolation, and persecution toward a future of hope, opportunity, and justice. Thank you. Roots of Peace. Heidi Kuhn. Seen her? Roots of Peace is trying to replace the scourge of landmines with bountiful agricultural fields, restoring the legacy of Afghanistan as the garden of Central Asia. And finally, the organization that I am here representing is called Master Teachers by Satellite for Afghanistan, MTSA. We are the 4 little computers up in the back, and we invite you to take a look at them. We are dedicated to bringing education to the children of Afghanistan who are without schools, without teachers, through distribution of the 1 laptop per child XO laptop computer, 4 examples of which are sitting back there, backed with a solar electrical source and other local infrastructure. Thank you very much. I don't know if I did it in 15 minutes, but that is it. And we are now going on to, let's give one more round of applause for all the wonderful organizations we have with us and participating. And please get around and talk to them and pick up their literature. Our first keynote speaker will be Dr. Nahad Aziz. Dr. Aziz is a clinical psychologist and an associate professor in the clinical psychology department at Argosy University, Washington, D.C. Dr. Aziz's dissertation won the Best Dissertation of the Year award, which was a clinical manual for mental health professionals treating Afghan immigrant and refugee women. She's a human rights activist and the vice president of Afghan Education for a Better Tomorrow, a nonprofit organization promoting health and education in Afghanistan. Join me in welcoming Dr. Aziz.
Thank you very much for your warm welcome. My name is Nahi, and many of my students also mispronounce it. That's okay. That's fine. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and a deep honor for me to be here today. And I would like to thank the Rebuild Afghanistan Summit Committee for inviting me to be the keynote speaker at this very important summit. It's a particular privilege for me to be here today to talk about something that I'm most passionate about, namely addressing the psychosocial health and needs of my fellow Afghans. In my opinion, this may be the most important aspect of rebuilding my beloved native country, Afghanistan. I chose to talk about this topic because I'm in a very unique position to contribute to the understanding of psychological consequences of wars, not only because of my profession as a psychologist, but also as someone who has experienced firsthand the devastating effects of war in my native country. As a mental health professional and a global citizen, I am reminded every day that wars and political conflicts can create such long-lasting and chronic psychological upheavals whose negative impacts can affect many generations to come. Afghanistan is now a classic example of how the international community has failed in delivering aid effectively. And in attempting to rebuild the country, after 9/11, there was a strong world consensus about helping build this devastated country. The Bonn Agreement, signed in Germany, established a framework for reconstruction under the United Nations, with a wide list of countries pledged to their assistance. Indeed, this strong consensus on Afghanistan stands in contrast to the Iraq War, where there was very little consensus. However, these initial agreements and consensus were subverted by the war in Iraq, which took away resources and attention, and by a number of other vital factors which have contributed to the situation we are in today. These factors include, first, a lack of deep commitment and an extremely short attention span with short-term goals. Two, ignorance about the fact that the challenges encountered are of a regional nature, and so a regional approach was needed. Three, the international aid delivery system being a complete failure, where only about 10 cents on a dollar made it to the actual Afghan people on the ground. Four, multiple countries, numerous official agencies, and a huge number of NGOs working on projects completely disconnected with each other and disconnected with any national plan tying them to the people of Afghanistan. And I'm very grateful, Mr. Sattari, that you're creating this, because that is really important in terms of coordination and knowing what's going on the ground. So hopefully we don't replicate projects and involvement there. And finally, somewhat of a disregard for what the Afghans wanted and needed. Instead, decisions were made in far remote capitals of the donor countries. So these were some of the factors that created this current situation. Now there is a refocus on protecting the population, quote unquote, as described by General McChrystal and his new counterinsurgency strategy. Although this is quite late, it is much welcome now. When you're rebuilding a country from scratch, you have to do the following: rebuild a nation, rebuild a state, rebuild a political system, and an economic system, and often a social system. This usually takes decades, if not more. In Afghanistan, all of this was attempted at the same time and thought that it can be done in just a few years. In doing so, one of the critical factors forgotten was that the population of the country had seen decades of conflict, war, and mayhem. Afghans have very strong cultural ties, which have sustained them for a very long time. But they are also human beings and have been greatly affected by the conflicts. One cannot rebel a country without attending to the well-being of its nation. So my main argument today is that you cannot rebuild Afghanistan without helping its people rebuild their own lives. This starts with first looking very deeply at the psychosocial needs of this population. In fact, I would even argue that in rebuilding Afghanistan, the most critical factor is to first attend to the psychosocial health of Afghans. So let me turn now to speak more specifically about the psychosocial state of the Afghan population, and then speak about the vital factors in beginning to ameliorate the situation. 30 years of conflict in Afghanistan has striking the very soul of the Afghan society. These wars have not left anything but destruction of social structures, social networks, families, and communities. One of the most devastating outcomes of war in Afghanistan is the profoundly damaging psychosocial impact on the population. The chronic and long-lasting wars, characterized by high levels of violence against Afghans, have impacted the Afghan society at multiple levels, including the individual, family, and at the community level. Afghans have been particularly vulnerable and often suffer from devastating long-term consequences of experienced or witnessed trauma and acts of violence. They are to cope with repeated traumatic life events such as the loss of loved ones, displacement, lack of food and shelter, interruption of education, and other adverse experiences, all of which have led to hamper their ability to lead a productive life and a peaceful life and function adequately. The war in Afghanistan has caused deep-rooted trauma in the population. The conflict and violence in Afghanistan in many ways are psychosocial, as the war trauma has affected both the psychological and the social conditions of Afghans. Among the major psychosocial stressors that Afghans presently face are the current terrorist attacks throughout the country. Their very difficult social and economic conditions that characterize everyday life, such as malnutrition, poor living conditions, unemployment, illiteracy, gender-based discrimination, including domestic violence, social isolation, and lack of access to health, education, and vocational resources. I'm reminded I only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to make it short because I want to get to my recommendations. So that's most important to me. So what is needed to be done now to rebuild the human structure of the country, and what are the steps to begin addressing the overall health and mental health of this devastating population? Given the grim picture of the current psychosocial condition of Afghans, I would like to highlight some of the areas that I feel are most important to improve the health of Afghans. Healing the social trauma can be an essential aspect of Afghanistan's social reconstruction. However, this is often overlooked. Afghan societal trauma has not occurred in a vacuum, nor does it heal apart from ongoing social process. Therefore, societal trauma must not be treated as an individual disorder, but one that requires a psychosocial approach. Community-based psychosocial support can be foundation for social reconstruction. Strengthening Afghan health professionals' capacity to recognize and treat psychosocial needs by encouraging social or religious coping mechanisms and not prescribing psychotropic medication, especially for children. Improve links and dialogue among NGOs offering psychosocial support and mental health services in Afghanistan. And finally, international assistance is best offered in a spirit of partnership rather than patronage. Only those international professionals who come to Afghanistan with cultural sensitivity and a willingness to learn will be welcome and at the end will be truly effective. In closing, we should never believe that because of the long-lasting war and violence, every single Afghan's mental health has been affected. This would be an unfair generalization. In fact, the psychological resiliency of Afghans must be acknowledged and viewed as a major strength of Afghans. The level of violence and trauma that Afghans have encountered is well beyond one's imagination. And without their profound and rather admirable resiliency, Afghans would have not been able to survive. In this respect, although we have much work ahead of us, the profound resilience of the Afghan character gives us hope for the future. A future I hope to be much brighter than this recent past. Thank you for asking me to be the keynote speaker, and your advocacy remains critical to ensuring that these agendas stay on our plate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aziz. I think that was very inspirational, and I really appreciate the opportunity to hear you. I have I'd like to ask Dr. Solomon to come up at this time, and I'm going to give him a proper introduction, but I need to first remind you that if you did not buy a box lunch and you want to sneak out quietly and go down to the cafeteria, now is your opportunity because they are going to close at 12:30. So go down, get what you need, and come back. In the meantime, we are going to be treated to a second opening speech or keynote speech by Dr. Norman Solomon, the founder and executive director of the San Francisco-based Institute for Public Accuracy, a name which rings, and how did he get that name before I did? Which seeks to broaden the public discussion with media professionals, policy analysts, and public officials. In September, he just returned from a week-long fact-finding mission in Kabul, where he visited a refugee camp and spoke with UN officials, Afghan government policymakers, and NGOs. Dr. Solomon has authored 11 books. His most recent was published in 2005, entitled War Made Easy: How Presidents and Pundits Keep Spinning Us to Death. He's also the co-chair of the National Healthcare Not Warfare campaign. Thank you very much, and let us welcome Dr. Solomon.
I'm here with enormous admiration for all that people have done all these years with the Rebuild Afghanistan Summit. I know so many people here with us today have been tireless in this ongoing need to come to terms with reality. Let me say as an aside that I appreciate the conferring of the doctorate on me, but I must decline. I'm not doctor, but thank you for the thought. You know, as we look back, we may recall the saying that history does not repeat itself, but it tends to rhyme an awful lot. And so we have an opportunity, I think, to decode a lot of what we have experienced in our own lives and make more sense out of it. I remember more than 40 years ago, Martin Luther King talked about what he called the Western arrogance of feeling, that we have everything to teach but nothing to learn from the rest of the world. And as I was able to read about the history of Afghanistan and then to visit Kabul a couple of months ago, I was struck again and again by how crucial Dr. King's insight was and remains with us today. When I went to the Helmand Refugee District Camp number 5 in Kabul, it was an unannounced visit with myself and Rick Reyes, who was returning to Afghanistan not as a Marine as he first had arrived in the country, but as an activist with the group Rethink Afghanistan. And of all that I saw, perhaps none captured more of the image and reality of what we have to face than the children of that camp who had virtually nothing, whose toys were plastic empty bottles with ropes tied around their neck, children who had been dislodged by aerial bombardment, children who are living in conditions that are shameful, children who are living in a country where we are told the United States of America is there to win hearts and minds, and yet in that camp of 700 families dislodged from Helmand province, the United Nations does not help because they did not cross international boundaries. The Afghan government did not help because, as Mohammed Zia, the head of rural rehabilitation in the ministry of the Afghan government, told me, they're economic refugees, and he said they should simply go back to where they came from. And the United States government, which is not helping the people in that camp, I'm still seeking an explanation why people there are living from the handouts of generous Afghan businessmen day after day to disperse rice and vegetables to the families there. What we are learning again and again, what people are experiencing, is that war not only is destructive of life, but that when aid is put forward as an adjunct to war fighting, the results are merely destructive. When we look on CNN and we see the photo ops and the very genuine help from the U.S. military towards individual Afghans, for instance, in Helmand province, it begs the question of why U.S. aid is largely following, as many NGOs and UN officials told me in Kabul, this aid from the U.S. government largely following in the tracks of the U.S. Army and Marines. That is no way to aid in a country. I did see the enemy in Afghanistan. The enemy is poverty. And it's notable in so many of the news accounts that we see how rarely that word even appears. Very little information about the facts that you here today understand all too well. Infant mortality, maternal mortality, life expectancy, all among the worst in the world in that country. And